In this video, I'm going to go over the basics of character creation. I have switched over to PDF so you guys can see it, the content's a whole lot better. I'm not going to go over a page by page or anything like that, as that will spoil some things, but I'm going to at least hit some highlights, and you can see if Forbidden Lands is for you, whether for your gaming group or for your solo role-playing needs. Creating your character is just like creating your character in most other role-playing games. If you're familiar with role-playing games, then what I'm going to say is going to come easy to you. All you got to do is choose your kin, which is in this game the equivalent to race. Pick your profession, which is your equivalent to class. Decide your age. Age does play a part of your character creation. Younger characters will have higher ability scores, while the older characters will have more skills and talents. You will spend your points on your attributes, your skills. You'll choose your starting talents. You will determine your pride. Each character will make a pride statement, and I will go over later what that means. You will choose a dark secret. You will define your relationship to other player characters. Pick your gear, decide your appearance, and choose your name. As far as the races go, your choices are human, elf, half-elf, dwarf, halfling, wolfkin, and orc. These are your standard fantasy tropes. But what you don't know about this game, as far as the setting, each race has like a particular quirk about them. For example, the halfling here, we're going to read this. Everyone is happy and tubby in your family. They sing humorous songs in the inns and drink and smoke. But when the darkness falls, they vomit into the flower beds and go home to beat their children. Your crazy aunt is locked up and no one wants to acknowledge you. Even more twisted relatives, even though everybody knows they're out in the woods. You clean the flower beds and oil in the wooden facade of your burrow so neighbors will see it and be forced to go out as well. And everyone smiles and nods, even though they hate and slander each other as soon as the opportunity arrives. So basically, halflings in this world, they appear like they, in the Lord of the Rings, happy, jovial, but when no one's looking, they've all got some twisted dart. They beat their children, beat their wives, rude, crude, socially unacceptable. The elves in this world, all elves are immortal. The elves are tied to these ruby shards. As long as the ruby shard is fine, when the elf's body dies due to an accident, they will reform and begin life anew. So that's kind of a weird, twisted trait, that each of the races have. As far as statistics, though, each race is given a key attribute, a kin talent, a list of typical professions, and then they give you some typical names. You are not limited to these professions. These are just the common typical professions, such as like in D&D. Very rarely do you come across a dwarf mage. They exist, but they're not exactly your standard fare. Same's true in this world. You can play any race class combination you want. They each get, like I said, a key attribute, which plays an important part of character creation. And they each have a racial talent that all members of that race get, such as in this case, the halflings get hard to catch. The dwarves, their key attribute is strength, while their kin talent is something called true grit. The classes. As far as the classes are concerned, your choices are druid, fighter, hunter, minstrel, peddler, rider, rogue, and sorcerer. Your druid is not your standard typical always hanging out in the woods kind of druid. The druid also kind of fulfills the role to some degree of a cleric. Something odd when I saw peddler, I'm like, what? Peddler? Yeah, these are like traveling merchants. How often in your role-playing games you come across traveling merchants selling their wares? That standard typical fare in a lot of role-playing games. But never did anybody ever think about actually playing a traveling peddler, somebody who tries to travel back and forth and sell their wares. You can actually do that in this particular game because of the economy of scale and how things go in this type of world and the type of setting that it's in. It actually makes sense. As for your classes, they also have a key attribute tied to their class. Their list of skills. These are the skills that they are more apt to be trained in as opposed to others. And then, of course, it gives you like a typical nickname. Also, when you create your character, you're going to create a pride statement, a dark secret, and a relationship statement as it relates to other characters in your party. And then it also tells you about your starting gear. Like, for example, a fighter will start out with a one-handed weapon of their choice, that is leather armor, one item from the list of trade goods, D6 silver, and then a resource dice. I'll go into that later for their food and water. Resource dice is also used to keep track of things like torches, arrows for your bow, and bolts for your crossbows. The next thing you'll do is choose your character's age. This will determine whether they're young, adult, and old. When I first made my first character, I made an elf. And I sat there and I'm like, they don't have stats for the elf. Is this a misprint? That's when I read and found out that about the elves being immortal. All adventuring elves are considered adult age, irregardless of their actual age. Your character has 4 main attributes: strength, agility, wits, and empathy. And then based on your age, you will distribute the attribute points accordingly across those 4 ability scores. You must assign at least 2 points to each score, no more to 4 points to any attribute. However, this is where the key attributes came in from your race and your class. If either your race or your class uses that attribute as a key attribute, you can assign up to 5 points. If both your kin and your profession have that as a key attribute, then you can assign up to 6 points to those attributes. Age also plays a role in how many skill points and talents you will acquire. The older you are, the more skill points and talents you will get. You will distribute your skill points amongst your key skills. If the skill listed, excuse me, is listed on your character sheet as a class skill, oh, can't talk. If your skill is listed as a class skill, you can assign up to 3 points. You can assign up to only 1 point in other skills. And then your talents. You will get your kin talent, 1 profession talent of your choice, and then a number of general talents depending on your age, as you can see on these respective charts for both the skill points and the general talents. You will also make a pride statement about your character. Pride statement can be something like, for my hunter, his arrows never miss. Pride is an extra game mechanic where if you fail in a task related to your pride statement, you get to roll an extra D12 into your dice roll pool, which I'll explain how the dice pool works later. If you fail using your pride statement, then you must play 1 entire session without a pride before you get to choose a new pride for your character. Here is just a sample character sheet. Half-elf sorcerer someone made up, and there's a distribution of points, skills, there's some of the talents, a pride statement. Nothing scares me, as I've seen the world beyond the veil. That's kind of interesting for a sorcerer there. All characters have some type of dark secret, something they don't want known. Should the dark secret play a role into the actual story, however, it will affect how you will earn experience points. I'll go into that later. You will also create a relationship statement for some of the your player characters here. Let me get this to go right. My computer won't cooperate, but that's right, we'll get it. Anyway, you make a relationship statement. You know, The ranger's upset because the wizard eats all the food. The wizard is upset at the so-and-so party member because they don't follow the wizard's directions because the wizard's so arrogant. Things of that nature. You will then get your starting gear as listed on your profession. And then, of course, you can spend the money, the silver you get, to buy other gear. Gear is important, especially when it comes to armor and weapons. One thing a lot of DMs and players have the tendency to ignore is encumbrance. Encumbrance, though, is handled real simple in this game. Your character can carry a number of items equal double to his strength score. Some items are considered heavy and count as 2 items. Light items only count as half an item. Tiny items like coins and such, you can carry a ton of those, as it says right here. Items that are even smaller than light are called tiny. They are so called small that they don't affect your encumbrance at all. The rule of thumb is if an item can be hidden in a closed fist, it is tiny. Tiny items also need to be listed though on your character sheet. Coins are counted as tiny items and don't encumber you. However, 100 coins count as a light item, 200 coins count as a normal item, and 400 coins count as a heavy item. You can temporarily carry more than your normal encumbrance would allow. In this case, you need to make a roll for endurance whenever you want to run in a round of combat, or hike for a quarter of the day, which I'll go over that later. A special category of items are called consumables. These are things like your food supply, your water supply, your arrows for your bows, and your bolts for your crossbows, and your torches. Each will start at a particular level of a resource die ranging from a D6 to D12. Whenever you use an item that is considered a consumable, you will roll the appropriate die. If you roll a 1 or a 2, your character will then drop to the next die level. So if he was at a D12 and he's pulled that arrow out to shoot the orc, he will also roll the D12. If it rolls that 1 or a 2, he'll drop to a D10. D10s will drop to D8s, and D8s will drop to D6s. D6s, once you roll that 1 or 2, you are out of the consumable item. You ran out of arrows, or you ran out of food, you ran out of water. This kind of creates, sometimes you have a situation where you start off at D12 and life is grand, and then 4 rounds later, you're out of arrows. Or 4 days later, you're out of food. Kind of creates a way of keeping track of things without keeping track of every single little arrow or every single day's worth of food or water. And the last step in creating a character is just decide your appearance and give yourself a name. And then you're ready to rock and roll and begin adventuring. Actually, I stand corrected. There is one other thing you'll want to determine, and that is your character's starting reputation. This will determine things such as whether or not your characters are being recognized when they enter town, whether they're, good reputation, bad reputation. Sir, I know who you are. Your reputation precedes you, kind of thing. It will determine to some extent some NPC reactions towards you. It may give you a bonus or penalty on future rolls, things of that nature. That is the basics for creating a character in Forbidden Lands. We'll create another video which will go more in depth into the skills and talents and how you gain experience and things of that nature. And then we'll get into some of the core mechanics of the game, and we will go from there. I hope this video has been helpful to you. And until next time, happy gaming.